in your hands, so when they get things fixed and repaired, you can say, hey, look, this is what I had. You have it. I want it back. Is your personal data safe? Family records, addresses, phone numbers? Well, squeeze on over to freedomslips.com. Yes, that's www.freedomslips.com. Click the banner on the homepage for the EMP-proof bullet drive to get the full scoop of everything that we offer. So, folks, keep your data safe for your peace of mind. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.
This is the people's war. It is our war. We are the fighters. Fight it then. Fight it with all that is in us. And may God defend the right.
Warning, warning.
We gotta stop them! They're gonna kill us all! See how the trouble you've started? Be they the government, be they industry, be they organized labor, be they anyone, or human beings. Time when the operation of the machine becomes so odious, makes you so sick at heart that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part. And you've got to put your bodies upon the gears and upon the wheels, upon the levers, upon all the apparatus, and you've got to make it stop. And you've got to indicate to the people who run it, to the people who own it, that unless you're free, the machine will be prevented from working at all.
Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported talk radio station, throwing ourselves upon the gears of the machine. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
You calmed down the thunder, well now you got it.
Right! You tell them I'm coming! And hell's coming with me, you hear? Hell's coming with me!
Revolution Radio!
Extendivite really works. Just listen to what some people have to say.
Several years ago, I was developing a very severe situation. I called it my flippy heart. It just was doing not good things, and I did not want to go to a medical doctor because I just knew they would give me a cover-up pill. I didn't want to get onto that sort of thing at all. When I learned it was garlic and cayenne is a healer. It is a wonderful herb. I said, I think I'm onto something here. I'll tell you, I wouldn't be without it. It did wonderful things for me.
Extendivite is only $69.95 for a 2-month supply of either capsules or liquid. Call now. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates.
Hi,
You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Weird. Anyway, I have a really guest with me today to talk about targeting. He really does know his business. It's a man called Zeph Daniel, and the show is dedicated today to my friend Jeff Weiss, who introduced me to Zeph Daniel. And he comes from Los Angeles and has been at the forefront of exposing violence, Satanism, gang-stalking, human trafficking, demonic activities, and secret evil while on the journey of Christ since 2002. The beginning of the Zeph Report. A background as a writer, screenwriter, novelist, and musician, Zeph has known and grown up with many of today's top influencers, some of the top shapers of so-called military-industrial complex. So his YouTube channel is absolutely awesome. I'm going to bring him on, and, you know, it's great to be able to bring him on. Now, how to do it is the
We're live now, babes.
Okay. Okay. Hi, Christine, Joanna, Hart, coming in live today from Sussex in England and doing a show. Today we've got a show about targeting. We've got an expert coming on that's really good, and the show is dedicated to my friend Jeff Weiss, who is a very good man and introduced me to Zeph. I'll just read out his bio here. He comes from Los Angeles and has been at the forefront of exposing violence, Satanism, gang stalking, human trafficking, demonic activities, and secret evil while on the journey of Christ since 2002. The beginning of the Zeph Report, a background as a writer, screenwriter, novelist, and musician. Zeph has known and grown up with many of today's top influencers and some of the top shapers of the so-called military-industrial complex. So he is a really interesting man. I've listened to his YouTube a lot, and some of his shows are really, really good. I'm hoping my producer, Jerry, at the moment can bring him on. Jerry? Oh, Jerry's gone.
I was muted. Yes, I'm still
okay,
here.
There you are. Could you bring him on?
I'm trying to find him. I don't know where you text me.
Oh, I texted you.
Because right here's when you said sound, and I said what?
Okay.
There's a.
Sure, don't worry. He's called Zeph Daniels, so that's ZEPH.
Wait.
Z, I think.
Okay, I'm looking at. I got you now. Let's see. Okay. Okay. So hang on. If I could copy that, I got to write it down. Just carry on. I'm going to write it down and add him in just a minute, but I got to write his name. You carry on.
Yeah. So I didn't know what gang stalking and targeting was, and until I entered the truth movement, and somebody really lassoed me into it. I published my second book, In for the Kill. Somebody approached me and said that they thought I was a monarch and wrote me into learning about it. I came across, they posted on their Facebook group about a man called Colonel Michael Aquino, who was supposedly responsible for all this monarch project that they said I was in. So I wanted to contact him to talk about my, was he there? Was he hanging out with these Jesuits at this London? It's called the Crusades of Rescue. He was in London, even though he denies it. I found that out. So I tried to contact him. I didn't get much luck. Then in the end, I did get a bit of luck, and I got attacked astrally, which was pretty scary. I've shared about it so many times. And then, of course, how are we doing, Jerry?
I'm still texting it. I don't have my glasses, so I'm trying to bring him in now. I'll let you know. Okay. I'm trying, Vic. You're doing good. I just can't see.
Right. I love it when shows fuck up. It's probably because it's a show about Bible matters, and of course, if you do something like that, then everything goes crazy, and you can't bring a guest on and all sorts of stuff. So yeah, trying to find him.
All right, I'm trying to. I hope this is him.
Okay, there's only one of them.
Zeph Daniel 1. That's the one you get. And now let's see if he knows he's coming.
Okay, you're right.
Hello there.
Yes, hello.
We're all good. Right. So Christine,
Thank you.
I'm glad you joined us.
Thank you.
I'll just mute out, and then I'll just drop, and then you guys got it. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, Zeph.
How are you?
Hello. Thank you very much to Jerry there, who's producing the show. It's really kind of him. So Zeph Daniels, welcome to the show. And I've just introduced you. And I just read out your bio. And I was explaining to the listening audience that how I found out about targeting and gang stalking and that kind of thing. I had written and published. I used to be a journalist, Zeph, and I worked on Fleet Street in London and worked for the News of the World and mainstream newspapers. And I'd written a book, a biography about my life and growing up in an orphanage and
wow.
you know, yeah. And then I worked for detective agencies that were ex-MI6 run and had quite an unusual life, and so wrote about it. And an American girl said to me after reading my book that she thought I was a monarch, you know, one of those monarchs that you've heard of.
A butterfly. No, I know what you mean.
So I didn't believe it, and I thought, it's American stuff, you know, we English are a little bit, reserved with anything that's outside the box, you know?
Yeah, of course. I am too. I would be too. It just, I have an unusual life, and I'm, it's like your worst nightmares come true. That's kind of like how it's been. But over the years, I feel like, since beginning in 2002 with my Zeph Report blog, it seems like at first I was called completely nuts, Then eventually, I'd say over like the last 5 or 6 years, maybe a little longer than that, I feel like it's sort of been vindicated, the things I was saying about, the world and, the secret sort of underbelly of our world that runs everything. And I think there's a lot of agreement from a lot of different areas about this. And now we have all this, talking about gang stalking, and then I tie it right in with the Satanism, because it's like people that are decent people tend to be targeted more than, like, if you're an awful, evil person, you don't tend to be targeted. Have you noticed that?
It's weird, isn't it? I mean, I didn't. Yeah. You've talked about what kind of people are targeted. I have to say that I really had I'd had an abusive childhood and stuff, but I found I could, manage. But then when I met a man called Douglas Dietrich, and he gave me the radio show here, or introduced me to the owner, and, more or less set it up, I wouldn't say maybe I was, but then I sort of noticed that things started to go wrong, and, lost my job, and, got evicted, and then car completely, and everything started coming down, gradually. That's horrible.
Yeah, no, I know that happens. But see, there's another way to look at it too. And that is, you don't want to be with them, right? You want to be you, and with people that, you trust, and that love you, and that you can love them. And you know what I mean? There's your people and there's their people. You're just not cut out to be one of the evil people in the world. And I'd say that's hallelujah time. You know what I mean? That's great for you, because the alternative is terrible.
Is it? What is the alternative? Is having a sweet life, isn't it?
A sweet life in exchange for doing bad things and hurting people.
I see. Yeah.
So I mean, if you do bad things, you lie to the grand jury, you look the other way on someone getting assassinated, I mean, it's a really deep, dark world, but the rabbit hole goes right to Satanism, and the abuse of children and murder of children, and the killing of innocents in this world, versus being a good person. Now, I think you need to have, I see on your blog, your thing on Skype, you say waiting for God. That's just exactly it. God makes a way for us through this, but there really just isn't. That's the only source we can get to, because on your own, I've tried to fight them on my own, when I noticed, the gang stalking was on and off throughout my life, in the beginning was like when I was a child, and it's just really some horrible memory. I was going over this last night in my mind of what I was going to talk about here, just, and I was thinking, well, some of this is pretty awful. And, I just was thinking, how to describe this stalking, but it really has a kind of a locus in the supernatural, in the evil supernatural. And then there's a mechanical aspect of people that are fueled by those spirits, fueled by that evil. And then they do things like, they're subject to those, if you will, demons or hive mind or whatever, and they can, come at any target with the idea. But the idea is always the same: to degrade a person, to degrade that person and drive them ultimately to suicide. That's the whole point. But also to degrade, in other words, to make them paranoid, to make them upset, to isolate them, and then take them out. And that seems to be the pattern. And I'm just thrilled that there's a lot of awareness coming. When I started trying to tell people about this, they just wanted to lock me up. You know what I mean? They just said I was completely nuts. And of course, now that's not true. We know that's not true. We know that it exists.
And it's a weird form. Like, I knew when I was adopted by my adoptive mother, she used to beat me. And it was only in therapy that I realized that she used a cane, because the backs of my legs were so,
that's a lot.
Yeah. And recently, when I joined the Truth Movement, there was some quite, diva women in there who were doing the sort of new age and, that kind of thing. And I came up against them because I was talking about Yahweh and that kind of thing. And next thing I noticed, I was sort of being accused of things that I hadn't done. And next thing, I was feeling almost the pain on the backs of my legs. It was really weird.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's almost like you're getting triggered to go back and deal with those memories and ultimately what we want to do is release those. We don't want that. You know what I mean? There's a thing about forgiving all that so that you can walk free. And so we when you get triggered like that, you go back to these painful memories. You might have anger issues toward people that were abusers, but I just found that the only way that I can just talk for myself. The only way I can actually get walk down the road is I got to let that go. But it's not so easy because those memories are just embedded and they hurt of abuse in childhood. So you want to let that go, but at the same time, you're like, well, how do I let it? How can I get free of it? How can I just walk on and be a human being and just be part of the humans? How do I cross that barrier? And again, that's another supernatural. That's a healing. That when you're healed, and sometimes by looking at it, you can get healed by remembering it and then clearing it away, but it's really, again, another supernatural thing. If you could clear those things, meaning it's not really forgiveness. It's like almost forgetness in a way, or that your body forgets, or somehow you're able to go on and grow outside of those things. And then, there's a degree of freedom with each thing, like I don't think I hate anyone from back there. I don't think so. What's happened to me over the years, I end up feeling sorry for people that are on that dark side and that do awful things. And I feel sorry for them in the end because I see where they end up. I see how they lose their minds. They become mad, a lot of them, and senile and with dementia and different things. And I see the breakdown, and part of the breakdown is they're carrying this tremendous guilt that they had sold out to that dark side, and that's how they had wielded their power and their careers and their lives, and it all turned out to be a complete waste.
Oh, I see. It's interesting. My mother had dementia before she died.
Well, there you go. Yeah. It happens. It's not. I don't see that many people with pure hearts and good hearts. That doesn't mean you don't make mistakes and and do things that you wish you wouldn't do. It just means that you're not going to see that side of things. You're not going to go with that side of things, and you're going to be, but in exchange for that, though, these hive minds and the way it is upon the earth, they pick up on that in you. And then of course you're targeted for that, you're targeted just for the kind of person that you are before you were even born. You're targeted.
Yeah. Well, I think that, Zeph, because I was born for a 13-year-old schoolgirl and then went straight into the care of the Jesuits. And, then I went to a family that was linked with them. The sister was a nun. And then I was back and forth to a convent. And, then then I went into this detective agency, and it was sort of like undercover work I was doing, which sounds a little bit like Nikita, but the penny didn't drop until this woman came and said, oh, you're owned by them. And I thought, well, and then I realized that, all the sexual abuse I went through from my adoptive father and all the beatings from her because she was like jealous that I was getting this attention. And it sort of made me think that there is targeting. I was looking at the magician E.A. Coetting, he's supposedly dark side, but when I listen to him, I think he's got a lot going for him that could be, on the side of good. And he went into foster care, and I can kind of see that, having some kind of power. And then they sort of, he saw some horrible things and still has that post-traumatic stress disorder. And I think if you've got that post-traumatic stress disorder, they can really just push you around in any.
Yeah, it's an agreement here. That's how they kicked me around for a lot of years, like that. But I'm still afraid of some things and people, ancient memories, old memories, and it makes me fearful. but then I feel like now I'm going to push through it. In other words, I mean, what does it matter now? I mean, I'm 65 years old. It's about time to push through it. What's the worst that can happen? They kill you. It's like, well, it's not that big a deal right at this point. So I'm looking at it like kind of laughing at it, but I see that I have to face some fears still. And it's just been a whole lifetime of, just dealing with that from childhood on. I'm just dealing with that. And, it's interesting in the beginning, the kids that sort of went along with everything, they're kind of, people out there that are sort of running things today. There are some of these people in very high positions, I'm sorry to say. And, but with me right away, I remember even being in this ritual when I was like 5. And I had, by that time, I was ashamed of my body. I was ashamed of it because I'd been sexualized earlier, raped or whatever earlier. And so I was, or 6, it might have been 5 or 6. But all I know is I threw a fit and I got myself kicked out of this thing where there was adults and kids. It was like a playtime thing, and they're in their underwear and they're touching each other. They're conditioning the children to service the, I guess, to service the adults or to fit into society, because that's our society. And I know people used to argue with that, but I made a very bold statement right there. But I don't get too much pushback on it anymore. It's funny, but I'm just saying.
What did you say about our society?
I've just said that it seems that our society is really fueled, if you will, by pedophiles, Satanists, the dark side, whatever, and then it's all covered up so that because you need to use free will to get in on this dark side, right? In other words, they can't just tell you what it is. They have to keep it hidden. They have to keep it hidden because the only way you're going to get into that is of your own free will. You sign on. You sell your soul in exchange for protection, money, some people fame, fortune, whatever the deal is, the Faustian bargain. It's very real. And so they can't tell you anything, even if you ask them. If they say something, they could get in trouble. It's one big hierarchy. So there's one, it's like, I had this guest on, Tina Plackinger, who's an author and wrote a great book called Treading on Serpents about GangStalking. It's like a daily devotional. And she was on and she was saying how they, like one of the stalkers, plotting against her would come up to her and say, "But you're so pretty," meaning like, I don't want to hurt you, but I have to, or I'm going to get in trouble. And it kind of works that way. And, kids are indoctrinated in school and many go one way, many go the other. The wheat and the tares grow together, as Jesus said in the Bible. Was the wheat and the tares are growing together, the good and the evil, the light and the dark. It's
I did notice my son when he went through, because I didn't believe it. Well, any of this, I didn't believe it, which is weird, but I didn't.
Understood.
But he brought home a book that they were reading. This was when they were 11, and it was a book called Cirque de Freak by Darren Shan. It's not his real name. And it was all about how this boy met this older man and went to a circus, and the man cut off his arms and blood was sprayed over the boys, and it was incredibly gory. And then eventually the man said, would he come out of his body a bit and let another entity come in? And the boy was saying, I might feel like murdering my sister and my parents, but I get psychic powers and I can listen in through walls. And then eventually it ends with him climbing on the back, of course very sexual, climbing on the back of the older man and flying through a park and then descending on a jogger and eating him. I mean, they're made to read that at age 11, made to.
Great reading. That's, but I understand it's a horror that's in the realm of horror,
but it's true occult, isn't it? It is true occult. It's not made up. They can come out of their bodies and let demonic entities come through. So they've been taught about the occult. I tracked him down, Darren Shan, and I said to him, and he goes, "No, it's Christian. I'm a Christian." There's no mention of Christ in there at all.
Well, if it's a piece of fiction, and I mean, is he glorifying I don't know the story. Is he glorifying the violence?
It's a good thing to let a demon come inside you because you get psychic powers. Yeah.
Well, I also write stories that are very perverse, and it's almost like I have to, I can only deal with that kind of stuff in these stories. But usually what happens in stories that I am involved in is that the evil is shown as evil. It doesn't succeed. You know what I mean? It does what it's going to do, though, and then it sort of crashes and burns. And the good usually will, triumphs after a bloody clash. I'm not really for Christian, writings and the kind of industry of Christianity. I'm not really in approval of that. I've seen so many of these hokey movies that are like propaganda. And I'm of the mindset that you should just let stories be what they are. And let them happen. Stop trying to put a spin on it. Stop trying to propagandize. Stop trying to make it go a certain way. Let it just be what it is and let the people decide. Because I think people are going to be, they're not fooled by propaganda, And when I say propaganda, I mean, okay, let's say, and I don't argue the fact that when people are following, say, the side of, common sense, the side of God, the side of right, whatever, that they're not going to be, say, voting a certain way, doing a certain thing, talking a certain way. Of course, that's true. But I think people, again, storytelling is like a sacred art to me. And it goes way, way, way back thousands of years. And it's tied into our DNA. We need to hear stories from each other. We need to have, even if they're tragic, if they're triumphant, whatever they are. And I just don't believe in if somebody writes something that is has sex in it or violence, I'm not necessarily against that, because the Bible has a tremendous amount of sex and violence as well. With the overarching, in fact, the Bible would be banned in most Christian circles. If and may eventually be banned for being especially if you take the story of Solomon, you take the story of David, you take some of these Old Testament stories, and you can see that people do awful things, but then you see how God deals with it, or you see how the end result, or you see how people reap what they sow in the end anyway. So in the end, you get wisdom of which way to go, which way not to go, and I think within most of us who are still intact, we know the difference between good and evil. I saw this one film recently where this guy just does whatever, and they try to make him into a hero, but it's coming from a bad space. So he's just like doing drugs and, doing sex and doing this and doing that, doing anything he wants, whatever the F he wants to do, if you will. He's just doing it, and he's the legend. He's like, wow, dude, you're so cool. And it was just the most awful thing, because it really just became stupid propaganda, became stupidity. And so they failed with the story. They didn't influence me. And none of the images I saw hurt me. Go ahead.
I think with that, because they were 11-year-old schoolboys, and there was
right.
one boy who had been abused, and he'd been looking at pornography, because I'd gone up to school to complain that he was, showing it to the other boys. And the headmistress, said, oh, we know about that. And I thought, and another woman as well knew about it, and they were like telling their sons just to avoid this kid. That's not the way to deal with it. And I noticed this kid specifically picked up another one of the Darren Shambuts called The Tunnel of Blood, and he was like eating up these Darren Shambuts. I think because it kind of glorified the special psychic powers that you might get from demonic interaction.
Well, anybody that would hurt somebody else to get demonic and psychic powers is sick. Period.
Yeah, of course.
That's right off the bat. Right off the bat, maybe they shouldn't be looking at that. I know that's exploitation literature. I know there's guys out there that just do this pure horror, and kids now can get a hold of anything on the internet. And the most disgusting, to me, the most horrifying thing I've seen are real footage from real cameras of people getting murdered. And I don't want to see them. I don't want this on my feed. I don't want it on Twitter or Facebook, but every once in a while, something like that pops up. And I keep saying to them, please don't show me that, and cruelty to animals too. I can't stand that.
I know when you're doing shows, I get sent stuff and I'm like, I can't. I'd like to, but I don't really like sort of getting involved and fighting that because it triggers my own stuff. But I'd like to be one of these people that, going back to what you said about the God of the Old Testament, a lot of people think that, that he's pretty mean to others. So what's your views on the God of the Old Testament and that people say?
Well, I don't know. My God is just God, the creator of, everything. And of course, I do follow Christ. I follow Jesus. And so God, Jesus, all that's kind of it's like one thing to me. You know what I mean? And I just put that first in my life. Scripture is that I do study scriptures, and I can take you through the scriptures to where you don't see the God of the Old Testament as this mean, awful person, But I think people, they look at the Abraham and Isaac story. That's a big one for that. Why would he want Abraham to kill his own son and then save him in the end? And then you look at, there's human sacrifice in the Old Testament. There's burnt offerings, and it's almost like when Jesus comes along, there's like it's a different covenant, a different God. There are people that have that discrepancy. I just see God as God, the creator, and that I've noticed with God that everything leads to good, and even things that happen to me that are awful, I see how he turns them, changes things from meant for harm into good, and that's basically what the Bible does say that. And of course, sometimes I don't believe. Sometimes my faith is tested and I fail. I say, how can he turn that into good? It sucks, and it's how can I go on? And just like this last year, a year ago, my daughter committed suicide.
I'm sorry, I had no idea.
She was 27, which is kind of an interesting age, for that. And we've been grieving all year and just, having a horrible time with that. But it's only been the strength of the Lord. It's only been that my faith has increased since then, that I had to either lay there and just drown of sorrow, because she's a very beloved girl, and or carry on somehow against, every fiber of my being that wants to lay there and die too. And her mother even, her mother wanted to die too. She said, well, she, jumped off that bridge and I wanted to follow her. And it's just like a horrible thing. So we were praying for them. I'm remembering it because it was July 18th of last year.
Wow.
And so this is coming up again. And we made July, I'm just announcing this, July is Suicide Awareness and Prevention Month. We talk about it quite a bit on the Zeph Report. And with the idea that, I believe in her case, it was a mistake. She had sought help from shrinks. They put her on, I think, Zoloft, which is a big warning about those psychotropic drugs, that was probably a big mistake. Oh. I met another guy around here on Zoloft. He said he had days where he was missing time, and the coroner said that she had blacked out. She was blacked out when she died, and the only thing we can see that's a common denominator would be alcohol and or Zoloft. And and she loved God, and she went on that walk, that the 500-mile walk through Spain, like Compostela de Santiago de Guadalupe de Santiago or something like that, where they walk to the church. It's a 500-mile trek called the Way. She did that twice, just in honor of God. And so she really, it just unbelievable to me that happened. I still have trouble believing it, but it did. And things do happen. And so you go to God and you go, what, that's my only child. What are you doing?
Oh.
That's like a curse. Are you cursing me, Lord?
Oh.
And, no, it's not. I may not understand it. See, I think this is one of the problems that people have with the Bible and the Word, and all. They confuse it with religions, and that's a whole other thing. But they apply their own understanding rather than realizing that a lot of what's happening we don't understand until later. Haven't you ever had things like you don't understand, then a long time later you go, oh, perhaps that was a blessing in disguise. Oh, that led to this. Oh, that went there. And it turns out that it wasn't the curse we thought it was. And I think that's, with me, it's like that's been proven over and over again. When I come to conclusions, which when I was younger, I just jump on a conclusion. and say, oh, this couldn't be, and I was anti, religion pretty much all my life, and I've been anti, everything. And, but in the case of the Lord, God, what's happened to me is that I've learned that, the ways of God may not be something I can understand right away. I might have to stand and have faith, be still, and then all of a sudden I'm shown something, and I'm like, oh my God, I was so wrong. I'm sorry. I didn't understand. And that's when people start coming into that light. They realize that the intelligence of, God is so vastly superior to us. And maybe not us in a collective way as a human beings moving around, but individually. And it's a matter of trust. I don't think people can understand God unless you trust. And a lot of people have an intellectual understanding, and so they reject this or that. I mean, I don't blame anyone for rejecting the whole damn thing. I understand. It's really. I totally understand that. I mean, I don't, I'm not against that. I'm just, for me, I got to a certain place in my life where I was beyond everything. And I Lord, if you're there, and from that point forward, I've just been on that same path. And some people get mad at me here and there for talking about it. But, I would say, pretty clearly over the last 20 years, I wouldn't be here right now pretty much unless that something had happened to me that was greater than myself. Unless that happened, I would have gladly committed suicide myself. That would have been a treat at one point, but I didn't, and held on, and actually, so yeah, are you there? And the experience was, what took me so long? I just kept throughout the world. I fought these people. I fought the Satan. Back when I was like a teenager, you talk about any of this stuff, you get locked up. They abuse you more. They'll put you under shock treatment therapy. They weren't having it. How about today though? We're all talking about all this stuff on Facebook, everywhere. It's out in the open.
Yeah, exactly. It's hard sometimes to believe that the world is run by Satanists, because you think to yourself, following Satan it's inferior to God, isn't it? So why are they that stupid?
Well, they're not stupid. They want to win. And they figure that's the only way they can win. And I mean, that was put to me when I was like, over and over again, especially through the teenage years. It's like, what are you doing? You're going to be a loser, jump on board or die. And that's just, that, of course, in my case, surrounded by, people that they, the funny thing about it is a lot of them aren't even around anymore. And some of them just, but some of them did, become, like I say, movers and shakers in the world. And you know what they're doing right now? I saw one situation in a high school reunion, a school I dropped out of, but it was a school to train people how to be good New World Order citizens. And they were having a reunion in 2012. And my friend caught up with me and goes, wow, you've been on this long journey. And he goes, why don't you come to the reunion? I said, well, I dropped out after 10th grade. What are you doing? What are you, stalking me? So there's some videotape. And I see this video of, not tape, but I mean, obviously video from that thing. And there's one guy that had been very, very successful, in the movie business. And I'm not naming names, so I'm not going to go there. But just put it, you just have to take my word for it. But he was walking around and like he was asking, he wanted redemption. Because I mean, his career is probably pretty much about over now. I mean, he can oversee the whole thing, but I mean, he's done his thing, and had his big successes, and now it's about done. But he's looking for redemption. He's saying, he wants to spill the beans. He wants to tell somebody something, and then the other guys at the party or whatever, they're sort of avoiding him. I mean, they're kind of like, like there's something wrong with him, say. And they don't want to hear it. So I was able to see that in a tape that was just supposed to be a a tape to memorialize a 40-year reunion or something.
So, but then it's hardly fair then if people are asked when they're teenagers, do they want to follow Satan? And because I suppose they don't really know any better.
True. That's true. They want to be cool, man. They want to be rock stars, whatever it is. When you're a teenager, you really just want to be the cool cat. You want to get the girls, or the boys. I'm not sure what it is now. I'm not sure I even understand what are boys and girls anymore. But I guess my definition is very old fashioned. There's a boy and a girl. That's about it. A male and female. But anyway, they want to be cool. They want to have the status. They want to have the popularity and all that. And, they're encouraged to go that way as a way to get those things. And when you're young, when you're that age, you don't care about, your soul or the implication. You're very impulsive and, you just want what you want. But in my case, it's straight. I have to say there's no virtue on my part. I think the abuse that I had at young and being sexualized young and then being ashamed, I think that basically kept me out of it, believe it or not. Somehow that gave enough that guilt and shame that I experienced throughout my life, and that horrible self-image I had growing up. I think that became a saving grace in the end.
I know what you mean.
It's so weird because I just didn't want to be involved in anything they were doing, So it had a weird blessing. So I can't take, in a way, let's look at something meant for harm. Abuse actually turned out to be a saving thing. Although, I've been lately in a lot of pain looking back lately, and, there's some things causing me to revisit memories and things of abuse and especially, the kind of gang stalking where all your friends sort of take their mask off and they're all trying to do you in, and they all seem to be from another planet. And then they're next day you see them, they're all normal, and they're like, you must be mistaken. You must be mistaken. You're thinking all these things that are wrong. You're nuts. We're all normal. And then they do it again, and you realize they're trying to do you in. And then the people back then that did die, many of my friends died because they were pure hearts, because they weren't going to be involved in that. And so these people are very serious. They want to recruit the entire world. And they're not going to, and they will not take no for an answer. If they feel anything at all about it, which you shouldn't, but if you do, and then you still say, I'm totally disagreement with you on everything you're doing, and that, you seem stupid to me, then they take that as a direct insult, and they start coalescing to take you down. And that's my only advice to people is when you're down, stay there. The best way with these people is not to want anything. Just kind of go through your life. But if you get very ambitious, there they are. They're just waiting with hammer and tong in hand, right?
For what?
Hope for, big success, big dreams, putting yourself and your desires above and beyond everybody else. Like you just really want the brass ring. You just really, really want it. Now, there's nothing wrong with wanting to win and, win. I guess we're trained to follow the rabbit around the track and try to keep up with the rabbit and win. But what is winning, in the end? Is winning being a success in the eyes of the world? Is that a win? Is winning overcoming, your own evil nature and being a fairly, trying to put other people first and to put life first and other people's lives above yours and try to make a difference in their lives. And at the same time, what is winning, or is winning just being, the ultimate CEO of the ultimate I win everything corporation? What is winning? I'm not sure winning has a lot to do with this world. I think winning, in a sense, is if you can keep your soul You win. You're a big win. To me, in my book, you're a big winner. You're walking, soul intact, and you've overcome all the people and all the stuff they try to pull. You are a wonderful, testament to survival. That's my dog Dasha.
It sounds lovely.
She's-
Something you said about friends. I noticed a friend of mine recently who I had known this friend for a long time, and sometimes when he comes around the house, or sometimes sitting in the car with him, it's almost as if I sense a change, and it's like a kind of an altar or something like that, and I just sense it, and then I get really, really scared, and it's like that sort of part wants to kind of make trouble for me. Is that? I mean, how does the dark side do that with people?
You mean by taking them? I've been wondering that for, I don't even know how many years. I mean, since how they change like that, they want to kill you. And then the next, I've wondered, I had that in my own family. I've been poisoned and everything else. I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. I still don't believe it. And yet it happened, more than once. And why would they do that? Why would people do that to you? Why would people try to kill you, when you didn't mean them any harm at all? And then the next time you see them, they're acting normal, like, hey, how you doing? And you can't believe it. Why is it figuring that out? The only way I've been able to figure it out is say, look, they've been entered into by a demonic entity, and that entity takes them over and they want to kill you. That entity does. And because they're weak, they have to put up with being invaded every once in a while, or possessed every once in a while, because that's part of the deal they made with the devil, that their vessel could be used anytime the devil wants. If you like Satan, if you like, people like to think, there's no central figure called the devil. Well, if you look at something like AI, it's a central figure, AI, and it goes out toward everything. That, you look at the all-seeing eye, it's kind of that, that hive situation, but it's under intelligent control, and it's after you, if you're in possession of your soul. And yeah, they're going to get possessed and they're going to come after you. I've wondered about betrayal all my life, how people, they seem to be friends, and then there's a betrayal that happens. And it's amazing, I do get a fair amount of, blowback, being on, talking and getting feedback from people. And one of the funnier ones is if people, they come around, they go, you're an agent for the dark side, you're a level, you're CIA and all that. And I just start cracking up. I'm like, okay, I understand. You're trying to discredit what I'm saying. You want what I'm saying to go, you want people not to take it seriously. So you try to label me. Well, what happens to these people with no proof? They just say stuff like that.
Oh, yeah. Tell me about I had it in the truth community. Some women said, Christine Hart is cyber stalking this other girl. Cyber is something I would never do. If I'm angry, I'm very, very rude to someone to their face, I can be rude, but I would never go under a different name, call myself like Black Giraffe or something like that, and say mean things and sort of sit on the other person. I'm just not that interested. I've got my own life,
Right. Well, I do too. And I've had people just almost to my face, like on a comment, say, quit stalking me to me. And I'm like, my God, I don't even know what you're talking about. This is frightening.
It is frightening. Being false accusation is really frightening. And I think it's used against you when you come up and you do start talking in the truther. There's other people in the truther community who will then make all these false accusations, and then other people move away. And when I had that accusation made against me, I lost a lot of my audience. I just noticed it on Facebook. Really? There was like 200 likes every time I did a post. Now there's like 10 or so, or 20, 30 if I'm lucky. And they lost me all that. Yeah.
That's happened to me. Oh, that's happened to me over and over again. I mean, over and over and over and over and over again. Like I remember we started out, we were on satellite radio. This is way before you were, before your time. But in the beginning, we didn't have MP3s. We didn't have, the radio thing the way this is set up. We had satellite and shortwave. And then we had some kind of thing online, but it was not, it was like not MP3 based, but real media based. And there were thousands of listeners. I mean, thousands and hundreds of thousands of listeners, all over the place. And then as that technology started changing, we went more MP3. Eventually, we got into the streaming and stuff. It all came, down to a very low amount. And then it's kind of like it builds up, and and then there's usually, like you say, some kind of, people shift around. Like if it's YouTube, we have a really nice listeners on YouTube, just really great people. They're like friends, they're always there, they're always friends are friends,
Yeah.
But then there's others, they come in and then they try to start something or they're there and then they're not there. And then it shifts around. But here's what I've noticed in the gang stalking topic, which is a big topic, and that's become huge. Just imagine that topic when I started talking about it in the, very beginning, saying, hey, Mom, Dad, hey, teacher, it's somebody, this is happening. And then you're crazy, right? Now it's all over the place. But look how many, I believe there's a lot of shills involved trying to steer the conversation away from the truth that these people are getting together and starting to compare their stories. And they're all so similar. And yet there are people, infiltrators, that are trying to bust up the conversations. And so they attack people like, if you're going to talk about it more, they're going to attack you, for that reason. And they don't want you to get together with your fellow man and help each other, to understand something that's almost incomprehensible. I mean, scared the crap out of me. I was so scared. I would just live under a rock almost for a while. I tried to escape. Like one time we went to the island, to the Hawaiian Islands after the whole LA thing was going bad. And then we were in the islands and Maui at a bar called, and the bar was called Nick's Fish House. It was in the Kealani, whatever, on Maui. Anyway, hotel. And I go up to the bar. The guy goes, "We know who you are." I'm like, what? I could go to Paris. It happened in Paris too. It happened in various places where I wouldn't know anyone. Where it starts in again, like the same thing that was happening in LA starts happening to you. It's almost like it's on a continuous. It happens, in an unbroken way in the next place you go. And they start and they say trigger words that only you would know. They say things and that they grumble, they whistle, they cough, they tap their foot, they do things. This has happened over and 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 over again. For years and years. And I know I know it's not, craziness. Although now we start to see the rise of the psychiatrist, don't they? We start to see these people coming in and saying, you need help.
Oh, yes. Seth, hang on. We're going. Is that the music, Jerry?
I'm sorry.
I can hear music. Can you hear music, or am I hearing things?
It may be the end of my time, 6:57, so you're 57 on the hour.
Yeah, on the hour we have adverts, but sometimes it doesn't play. I thought I heard something, but maybe not. I don't want to talk over the adverts because then I wonder if Jerry is with us. Hang on.
Hello, my name is Mr. Rowe. I am the host of Reality Extraction, Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. I utilize logic, intellect, and magic to methodically atomize, vivisect, analyze, examine, study, scrutinize, and extract an essence of reality from a fog of illusion and confusion. You can find me on Studio B every Thursday at 1700 hours Pacific Time. That's 8 p.m. Eastern. No topic taboo, no subject too strange. I strive to take a neutral standpoint during the dissection of the topic at hand. That's Reality Extraction with Mr. Rowe on Revolution Radio.
No, I've got another hour of show. But I don't know, are you tired or?
No, me tired? I've hogged the whole hour. You should talk more.
This is Thomas, a.k.a. Mad Painter. I'd like you to join me Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Open Canvas. Don't forget to bring an open mind.
Yes, folks, that's right. Bring an open mind to an open canvas. Again, that is Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern. UFOs, government corruption. This is Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.
Yeah, it's like it kind of is. I'm hearing glasses. I think do you want to have a 3-minute break? So
I'll just stay here and we'll just keep the phone line connected and I'll just come back and start talking.
We're an anarcho-syndicalist commune. We're taking in turns to act as a sort of executive officer for the week. Yeah. But all the decisions of that officer have to be ratified at a special bi-weekly meeting. Yes, I see. By a civil majority in the case of purely internal affairs. Be quiet. But by a 2/3 majority in the case of more major. I order you to be quiet. Look, you stupid bastard, you've got no arms left. Yes, I have. Look, it's just a flesh wound.
I don't believe I've seen such a display of courage, skill, nerve, grace, and stupidity.
I'll do you for that. Oh, what? Come here. What are you going to do, bleed on me? I'm invincible. You're a loony. The Black Knight always triumphs.
Roundtable Live, Monday through Friday, 1 a.m. till 4 a.m. Eastern Time. Bring your mind, bring your ideas, bring your voice. King Arthur had nothing on us. Here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com.
Extendivite really works. Just listen to what some people have to say.
Several years ago, I was developing a very severe situation. I called it my flippy heart. It was doing not good things, and I did not want to go to a medical doctor because I just knew they would give me a cover-up pill. I didn't want to get onto that sort of thing at all. When I learned it was garlic and cayenne is a healer. It is a wonderful herb. I said, I think I'm onto something here. I'll tell you, I wouldn't be without it. It did wonderful things for me.
Extendivite is only $69.95 for a 2-month supply of either capsules or liquid. Call now. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
So the mutants.
So, Christine Joanna Hart back with my show, coming in live from Sussex in England, and I have Zeph Daniels still as my guest, and I hope the adverts have stopped playing now. Zeph, are you still with us?
I'm here. Yeah, I've just been standing by, so I'm good.
Oh, great. So I would say they've stopped rolling by now, actually. Yeah, so it's interesting, the GangStalking, I didn't believe, what I find as well, that sometimes if, somebody said something and then you go and you think something's unconnected with that other sort of person, and then it turns out to be connected, and you kind of sense something, that I'm getting to a point now where I can sense the kind of people that allow themselves to be meat taxis, for demonic entities. There's something about them. There's something about them that you can sense it, and there's something about the song they sing, like there's something about the insults that they throw at you, something about the way they speak and communicate, and they kind of try and constantly hit you on your old trauma, like, the childhood trauma. I get called evil. I get called evil so much. I mean, it's almost like, and my mother called me evil, my adoptive mother. It was like, I was 5 years old, I was evil, I was spawn of Satan. And, that comes at me by those women in the truth movement. Oh, I'm evil, what evidence have you got for that? But there's none. But, that kind of thing. And
and it still bothers you because you still have trauma and a degree of PTSD from that time period that triggers you back to reliving the pain of your mother, the pain of the really it's the betrayal of others that should love you, and instead they're hating you, and they're bearing false witness, and they're trying to set you up. And there's you were strong though, for what you just told me. I mean, it's a terrible thing you've gone through, because a lot of our peers have committed suicide, haven't made it through, weren't as strong as you were, and or as I was. And that's the thing that just I think there's such a thing as we reap what we sow as a people, as a civilization, as humanity, and allowing this stalking. And I don't want to forget the directed energy weapons and all that kind of stuff that people are not supposed to be using, but they are using those on people, surreptitiously to cause them great harm, and they're doing it sadistically. And there's also a human trafficking element where drugs are used and abductions happen, and then people are placed back where they were after, say, being blacked out for a while. And that is another part of the gang stalking. I mean, you could almost hang on this gang stalking several different issues that we deal with, and they would apply, considered to be an evil that the powers that be allow, which is the most horrifying thing. And it's actually considered normal among the people. In other words, say you run the society and that kind of reality is going on. You might say, well, those people are crazy anyway. They don't really deserve to live. It's not my problem.
Oh.
And that's kind of the attitude they have.
Oh, yeah, of course.
So, that's really what we're up against. And this is the first time I knew that I knew, like when I was 18, and I had a tremendous suicide experience where I was suicided. Actually, it was kind of a combination, a horrible thing that happened. And I wound up in a coma. And what happened is the kids at this college were ganging up on me. And the music teacher there was, because my thing was been a music person, was connected to people in LA that wanted me gone. I was 18, but they wanted me, to go the way of other people I've known. And so they were pumping me up with drugs and LSD, and, I was taking them. I mean, I was responsible to that end. And then eventually they set up a bunch of traumatic things that happened, and wanted me to kill myself. And then all of a sudden I had this pure pharmaceutical phenobarbital, and they were telling me to, so eventually I just did what they wanted. I just took handfuls of it, wound up in a coma, and agreed. I took it. I mean, but if I did die, I still think I would have been, it was more murder than suicide. You know what I mean? The way they were acting. Yeah. And I was only 18. I didn't have anywhere to go. Wound up at in the hospital, and my heart stopped for 20 minutes, and I think my mother was upset I didn't die, and because I think pretty much everybody was trying to engineer my death, and because I was starting to spill the beans about what happened when we were kids, and satanic abuse, and I was talking about that stuff, right? So they decided to target me for death. I mean, and now this is not targeting for an eventual. This is targeting and get him out of here, So, I wake up and I'm 2 weeks in this psych ward, in this kind of like an observation area. And they said, well, you've been there for 2 weeks asleep. I couldn't open a door. I couldn't get my hand around the door. I couldn't walk exactly. I had to have psychological tests because I thought maybe I hurt my brain, from that experience. But I did recover. and I did pass those tests. And but from that point forward, everything was hell. You know what I mean? And when I mean, it eventually wound up where I was, taken to some long-term facility where there were all these sort of Nazi doctors telling me that nothing that I have said about the stalking, Satanism, satanic abuse, sexual abuse, trauma, rape, et cetera, none of that was true, right? And so they let me, part of my treatment was to play drums, eventually to have a skill. So I wound up, in the middle of nowhere in the Midwest playing drums in a country band as part of my program to be rehabilitated from being completely crazy. And the truth of the matter is, what's so strange, I know I can't do all this in a very short period of time, but at some point in my life, I ran into that music teacher again. He quarterbacked the whole thing. He was a composer out of Hollywood, but he wound up being a teacher at this. And I don't want to go into, I'm not going to, triangulate on the names, and don't try to get me to say any names, but we ran into him here in New Mexico. And he didn't know that I figured out that he was my assassin. And all these years later, from 18 all the way to about 45, or so, and then eventually he figured it out. And then I got evicted. We got evicted from where we were. But I mean, I felt that this was God. I thought the odds on running into your assassin. I mean, he took us out to breakfast. I kept talking to him about the evil of Satanism. You know what I mean? Satanism, right? You understand what I'm saying? And he's sitting there just, pretty much fuming. At one point, he started getting really pretty ornery, and his wife had died building these like condo things he built at Santa Fe, and his wife had passed away, and somehow he it was like a divine confrontation, and eventually he figured it out. He sold everything he built, and he went running back to his home in Denver, I guess. We gave him a Bible. Yeah, I gave him a glass of red wine. I remember I gave him a glass of red wine and a Bible, and he goes, "Are you scared?" And I go, "No." It's like looking at, and we know what we're talking about, right? We're facing off each other. He's this Italian guy too. He's like says he's like a made man type of thing. He's got this thing he showed me from Italy, from the government or something, that he's some mucky muck, right? Oh, and we survived that. They evicted us eventually, and they said, "Well, your cat's pooping on the roof or something," and so we happily got evicted out of there. And then wow. On the other side of us was this German guy who was like right out of the German Illuminati type guy, and I was starting the Zeph Report. Then I was screaming at the top of my lungs about Satanism, and they just and thank God I did, because had I been any more timid, they would have gotten me, once again. So the only way I could survive was to be loud and to be visible.
Do you think that there's any link there? Because you said Nazis. Do you think it's weird what happened in World War II, wasn't it? I mean,
sure.
What was that, do you think?
Well, I had these Nazi doctors. I mean, they were all from, like transplanted from Germany. And when I was a kid, it's like either that or the military industrial complex. And I always wondered about that. They were either, coming over here from Germany after the war, or they were from like the army, from the Office of Intelligence or something. And I always wondered why they became psychiatrists in Beverly Hills. I just, it was just one of the more bizarre things about all that, there were kids in there too, like me, and none of them were crazy. A lot of them, they were just, what they were? They just were fallout from, they just weren't conforming to the satanic system in their family. So they stuck them in there. And then a good deal of them committed suicide. That's right. Because that's what happens. They jumped off buildings. They eventually, not all of them, but a few of them then, had that experience. And then I've looked up others, and they've they went back to run their family businesses wherever they were, and they sort of became zombie. You know what I mean? They sort of gave up and just gave in and became, they just stopped being. Yeah, I guess they stopped being Don Quixote trying to do the right thing, and they just like became their fathers or became their mothers.
Yeah, what happens to people that don't, sort of like become really successful or fight? What about the ones that just have these quiet lives in houses and just, and just... I kind of resent sometimes the way they're called respectable and salt of the earth, because really a lot of them don't mention God at all. They just go through their lives and they're quite materialistic. They don't do anything spectacular, but people really seem to respect them in some way just because they have like these lives where, and what do you think about that?
Well, they have to respect, because they, it's kind of like I scratch your back, you scratch mine. So they give each other respect. But deep down, if you really query them, do they really respect their neighbor? Do they really respect that guy over there that sort of, took it easy and sort of took the easy way out? I don't know. I've always admired people that buck the thing that try to fight for their individuality, fight for freedom, fight against stuff that's wrong, just like what the truth community, and the spiritual community is supposed to be about. I've always admired those values, you know what I mean, of trying to get to the truth and following it, even if it causes harm, and honoring those people that stood up for truth, but then they paid the price. There are many that have paid the price because they stood up for freedom, and political prisoners, and people that are trying to, they're putting their lives on the line to make society a better place for everyone. And the corruption. I was just last night. I don't want to miss this. Last night I was just thinking what I was going to talk to you about. I was just thinking I wanted to talk about just the pervasive, corruption that there is. Just how much corruption, and just it's unbelievable. But if you can see the world as simply, and all the governments of the world and all the institutions, and everything is corrupt. I mean, satanic corruption, satanic abuse, all the, as a top heading, and all those are subheadings. It makes it easier. You know what I mean? When you see it that way, you realize that it becomes very clear. It's a binary situation. You're either going to with the corruption, or you're going to try to fight against it. And my admiration goes to those people like you, fighting, for truth, and trying to do the right thing, and you're taking hits because of it. And I respect that. If it was easier for you, you were just like I don't know what your goal might have been when you were a journalist, but maybe you wanted to be at the top of this or that, and you're just spewing out propaganda. I don't know if I'd respect you like I would now.
Oh, thank you.
Now that you've given up a lot for truth, you've done the world a favor, and you're putting your life on the line. That's what's respectable to me. And I know a lot of people that are very brave, and I know some that are very timid too, that they want to be brave. They just can't. they want to. And I guess that's good that they want to do the right thing, but then they kind of fall back.
Yeah, that's like our society's arranged like everyone has to, well, in England it's like that. Like you have to be married, and if you're not married, you're a bit suspect. And I was talking to a friend the other day about love, and love, when you really, really fall in love, is quite rare because of the way society's set up. And we're supposed to marry just on the basis of love. But here, especially in England, a lot of people marry money. Guy's got money, he's just going to take his pick of the beautiful women, and it's all about that, really. And that, mostly in England, you're only seen as respectable if you're married, which is supposed to be something about love, but now it's about something else entirely.
Yeah. Well, I've only been to, I've been to London once, and I was amazed at how many cameras you guys have.
Was that in the up on the thing?
I was there. Let's see. I stayed outside of town in some hotel there, and they, at one point, they just the TV was on. They just broke through the TV saying, talking to me directly, and that was just really strange, but really, we enjoyed it. I was there with the business thing, but I enjoyed the time, away, and we went out to where we go to Stonehenge, different tourist places, and just kind of toured around, and I was kind of also amazed. I don't know. We were on the West End. Where were we? There was one place that I remember we were screening a film, and then. I looked out the window, and it was a real kinky part of town. Is that the West End?
Soho, maybe? Soho?
Somewhere. Well, I was noticing there were 3 or 4 different women in these, nurse outfits.
That must have been. There's only one area that's like that, and that's Soho.
Yeah.
The rest is pretty respectable.
And you knew they were that was just an act, right? And it amazed me how many people were into this sort of nurse fetish. It was amazing.
That's the English for you. You're right. We're all a bunch of perverts.
No, well, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I was amazed at how there was just one brand out that day. And like I say, we were screening a film in a theater there, and trying to get it. We were trying to sell this film it was so long ago, it's hard to remember exactly, but it was it struck me as something kind of now I had fun there, because I have fun any place. It's not any place I'm going, as long as they don't start in, and I know that my activities in terms of travel have been less and less and less and less and less and less over the years, because of trying to avoid painful situations and triggering, and especially like you were saying, I want to underscore what you were saying, that the triggering is they say stuff that triggers the real shame, guilt, trauma of your past, and they seem to know exactly what to say to do that. And that's that just, it scared me then. It still scares me now a little bit, but then when I look at it as a demonic attack, I'm not as scared.
I know, exactly. I mean, the women that sort of came for me, they were doing it, and I was literally, I fell out. I lost a friend over it because I was screaming down the phone, I can feel the pain on my legs. They're trying to do this to me. And literally, they came for me. Then there was a little break, and then they came for me again. And anything I tried to say was interpreted by them as a threat. You're threatening me. And I wasn't. I was trying to make peace, but it wasn't working. And it just reminded me of being stuck in a room with my adoptive mother, just coming for me. And there was no way out. Whatever I said, she was going to tell all her friends I was evil. They were going to believe it. And in the end, I sort of goffed up, did the black eyeliner and all that. And you want me to be evil, here we are. And,
sure.
I did the whole thing of, getting interested in serial killers and all that. And, they still use that now. Like, oh, but didn't you write to serial killers? That proves you're evil. Well, no, I didn't, because they were all adopted and abused too. So I'm wondering why they actually, why they did what they did. You look at the real perpetrator, and there was an abusive mother behind it, or sexual abuse, or that kind of thing. And I got to the point where they did it so much that I started to sort of, because I'd been to Los Angeles and I'd done primal therapy, I started to kind of primal out and go really deep. Well, no, it was good.
I have something to tell you about when you get done there. I've got something to say about primal therapy. Go ahead.
Well, because I'd done primal therapy and I'd lived in America and done it in LA, and I was primaling out, and I was having deep suicidal feelings, but I was kind of almost like pooing out the bad feeling. And I got to the point, and this went on, it was all last year, only recently, that one of them came at me again, and they said, I'm going to trigger you, and you're going to get really angry, and then I'm going to get you because you're going to do this. And I thought, but you're not, because all I could see was the sort of the brokenness behind the, I got to the point where all the triggering inside me had gone. And I have to say, it is thanks to the Primal Institute in Los Angeles. I was out there for a couple of years.
All right.
That you can.
When was that? When were you out there?
Oh, gosh.
In the 70s?
No, late 90s.
Okay. Well, I have a little story for you. Oh, man. It has to do with Ellen Janoff. And
his wife?
No, daughter.
She died.
Yeah, and I was in the Westwood. They put me in this ICU at the Westwood Hospital it was on Barrington and Olympic, and it's still there as a building. It's like a Hebrew thing now, but I mean at that time it was this sort of lockup thing where they would put people. It's private, so they could do whatever they want, shock treatments, torture, whatever, and they could get away with it. But anyway, Ellen was also admitted there, and and people were talking about Arthur Janoff being the author of The Primal Scream. At the time, it was a big hit. It was about 19. We're going back a ways. It's about 19.
What's that kind of beeping noise? Is there a beeping? Oh, it stops when you stop talking, and then when you talk, it carries on.
Oh, Trish, can we get that? I think there's a. This thing is making that sound again. It's like a he.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Can we just get that? People have complained about that already. Anyway, so Ellen was in there, and I was in. Just our lives were not our own. She came in catatonic. In other words, she wasn't moving or talking. She was just like a complete zombie. And this is inside info. I mean, I did name her name because she's famous and she's gone now, and it doesn't matter if I say it, But here's the thing. I mean, I had these records that you could play, and they had a room there with a record player, and I got to, playing my records. As long as people didn't, everybody got to play their records. So I was playing my records in there, and I put on the famous song by Leonard Skinner, "Freebird." And it was playing along, leading up to the big guitar solo part. But before that, it was going along. She was just sitting there. And all of a sudden, when the guitars kicked in, the big guitar solo where they go to double time and they really push the guitars, she jumped up and started dancing all over the room. I mean, it was just like crazy, crazy animated. I tried to say, hey, look, she's moving. Hey, does that matter? I mean, you should figure that out. And then when the song was over, she went back to sitting there again, staring at the wall, not moving. Oh. That was in about 1970. I want to be accurate here, say 72, 73-ish, maybe 73. And I know that she had been working for Disney on a film. She had, she was a singer and an actress at the time. And then she eventually became a primal therapy therapist. And then when she died in 1976, I believe, it was because the house burned down. Apparently, they thought there might have been foul play because the house burned down, and there was a guy that was available to go in and help and bring her out, but he didn't do anything. Oh. Apparently, so she had. So she died in the fire. And the reason I became interested in it is I was over at the Westwood Cemetery, just down from, I guess it's, in Westwood off Wilshire there. And I just was curious to see Marilyn Monroe's gravesite.
I've been there, yeah.
That, the one I'm talking about. And so but just to the left, if you had looked, about 3 crypts over, because Marilyn is, people have seen that she's in the wall, right? She's in a wall, a crypt in the wall. About 3 over from Marilyn, or even next to her, it's in a very near proximity, is Ellen Janoff, 1954 to 1976, I believe, and it just says in all caps by her parents. I mean, obviously, we love you. And it always struck me as weird how large the print was on "We Love You." I've always felt there was something wrong with her death, just the way that was written out. And then Arthur Janoff, he had his, and I know all this just because I, again, just having been in a situation with her, I just was curious, and then realized that Arthur Janoff in Venice, California, he had his institute, and I think he's passed on now. But he had his institute in Venice at the beach there, in the ocean side of Venice. And various people thought, well, if I go through this primal therapy, I'm going to be cured of everything. And most people didn't get cured of everything. there are people that have deep depression. They go, once I go through the primal therapy, I'm going to be done with the depression. So they had too big of expectation, but I don't know. A lot of this stuff, to me, it just seems like it's a God thing. It says God has to heal us or it's not going to happen. But yeah, I've seen a lot of death, from people that were afflicted, depressed, killed themselves because they didn't feel they could get out of the depression. People that have gone through the primal therapy too. People that have gone through every kind of therapy. People that had deliverance from churches, going to churches to get deliverance, and then it didn't work.
Well, that's odd because I would say I was saved by primal therapy. I mean, when I went there, what they do, they rip down, it's like a house, and they rip up every floorboard you've got, and then they wait for what's below the floorboard to rise up. And the only one terrifying thing about it is once you start, you can't stop. So you start to feel really bad, and they actually bring on a major depression, which is very sort of strong, and then they can't put a lid on it, so to speak. So you have to keep feeling it. And I went there, and I was there maybe about 2 years, and then I went and sort of just, and I traveled. I left because it was getting like too much, and I thought I want to stop it, but I couldn't. And all this feeling was coming out of me. Every single day I would wake up, and the first thing I would feel was like a major depression would hit, and all these old memories would come up. And I went and I sort of toured around Spain, went to live in Morocco just by myself, just this feeling was pouring out of me. And gradually I kind of got to the point where I knew how to handle it. And I would handle it by, this is weird, but I used to go and sit on the loo, and I used to tell myself, it's like sort of pooing out the feeling. So when I was feeling it, I would say to myself, if I feel it really, really deeply, it would be like pouring it out. And gradually, one day, and this was after a couple of years, I woke up and I didn't feel bad. And I thought, right, and then it kicked in after about 10 minutes. And I thought, right, if I'm going to have one respite, then I think I'm going to get through this. And it was also the film Ben-Hur, when that actor who plays Ben-Hur, and he's in the bottom of the ship, the galley, and he says, God, I don't think you born me that I would die as a slave like this. And I went and prayed in a church, and I said, God, I don't think you bore me that I would go into America, do primal therapy, and then kill myself or, end up dead. I'm going to get through it. And I did get through it. And when you get through it, when you get all the old feeling out, you're less triggered. I think if I'd have entered the truth movement and had those women come at me, I might well have slipped into a state where I didn't come back from. Basically, I just felt bad. Yeah, basically, I just felt bad. And in fact, they've just pushed the last pieces out. I mean, one of them's coming at me saying this, I'm going to say this and you're going to get angry. I'm not anymore. It's gone. It's gone. And it was all those years in primal therapy that scraped it out. But somebody said to me that they said, you're really lucky. They said, because a lot of people, they push them into that and they sort of, that's it, I mean, it's a white knuckle ride, and it was a white knuckle ride for years.
Yeah, I understand that, overcoming the traumas. And well, with me, it's been the spiritual, that helped me. And I'm still not, like, I would say, I'm not 100% okay with everything that's happened here on earth, but I'm not okay with everything that I see other people going through too, or sometimes other people traumatize me by what they're going through, and so there's that too. And so I'm not 100% okay, but I just realize with me, it was like I gave everything to the Lord. I mean, I know it sounds to people that don't understand that, when you say you gave it all to God, you gave it all to Jesus, what does that mean? And I can't explain, there's no way I can explain that. You just have to be me in this situation, but it got me kind of going down a different path, and it has eased the pain. It made it so that it made it so I survived and I didn't die of depression, because I was so completely depressed, like I was just so completely, that I couldn't move. I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't do anything. And so I've just been on that spiritual path, and that's all I've been able to do. And it has led to some, oftentimes I think, how many years are we going to do this? Like now, I mean, my father died at 69, And that's just right around the corner. I'm not going to die then, by the way, just so you know, I'm going on. He wanted to die, but I don't. I'd like to see this healing completed. I just feel like what my life is for is to survive what happened, finally get to be at peace with it, and then die. If we can get, like a marathon race, you get to, and then you're finally at peace with it. It's like, all right, whatever happens now is okay. I feel like I'm seeing what life really is. I mean, here I am unfettered. There's nothing pulling me down, making me think back what happened then and how I could have done this, but I didn't. And then I screwed this up or that. It's just even. Everything is just beautiful. I see it. And I'm at peace. And that peace that I do have on occasion with the Lord is just when it's there, when you feel it in your heart, when you feel it within you, kind of a not exactly euphoria, but kind of a feeling of good feeling within, that you just feel good within and everything is balanced. And I just think, now I see what you meant, Lord. I guess we humans screwed it all up, but now I see what you intended. And yet,
exactly.
Yeah, but now you gave us free will, and I thank you for giving us free will. I thank you, Lord, for giving us free will because, we're free to screw this whole thing up, but we're also free to choose love, to choose Him, to choose to put Him first, not us. We're free to get out of here. We're free to move beyond the cycles of birth and death and all that. We're free to move on into eternity. We're free to move on into real freedom if we want, or we're free to choose evil and limitation, which is really to me limitation. Evil is like a death cult. It's limited, it's short-lived, it ends in death, it's a failure, it ultimately does not succeed. But life does, and so because I have free will, I can go that way. So even when my body is it doesn't matter. Nothing. It's just a continuation. The body is really not what's happening. It's an ongoing thing. And that I want to feel at harmony. I mean, I'm burying my soul here. Sorry. I want to be at harmony, within and not dissonance, but whatever it's going on within me, I'm going to reflect in either writing or music or something. Or podcasts or any of these, they're all creative endeavors. But, when it's at peace, when things are at peace, and the only way it could be at peace with me is I would have to have free will. I have to have free will. I don't want to give up free will and just have God push the euphoria button. I don't want that. I want to have free will, but I want to heal too. From the people that don't want you to use your free will, and they don't want you to succeed in the radio show. They don't want you to succeed in any endeavor. They're just like a force out there that unless you're going to be evil too, they put up a blockade. Well, that's not good enough for me. I want God to prove He's the strong one. He breaks these barriers. He heals us, and we move on with Him. And so far, I have to say I've had tremendous success because why? I am living, and I'm grateful, and I can't believe how good I feel compared to the way it used to be.
You were saying about prayer. I noticed that you said about in one of your lectures, you were saying that praying shouldn't be a grovel, and I really relate to that because when I was it's only last week that everything was going wrong, and I thought this is just crazy. It's crazy. And I felt like it was targeting and gang stalking. And I thought, I can either burrow down and sort of feel suicidal and sort of screw it on my bed, or demand that God, do something. And so I was pacing, up on heels, and I went, I said, I want you to intercede.
God, please fight this battle for me.
Yeah,
thank
exactly,
you. And I'll stand back. Through my faith, I won't interfere. I hand it to you, Lord. You're the one that fights our battles, and He does. That's not just biblical. That is the truth. You hand it over to Him, but here's the kicker, though. You have to be patient and stand and not suddenly take it back from Him. If you've given it off to him, you know, he's going to fight it for you. But then there's that faith that gets tested. Will he really? I'm not seeing any change. What's going on? You know, but if you can do that, and your life becomes, you start to see the truth about life, about how you're not alone. You know, that the Lord loves you. You know, he fights our battle. He knows we're weak. He knows we need supernatural strength. He knows we would all perish if we didn't have that strength. And even when we don't know he's there, he's there. He's there working on for lots and lots of people. And whatever they believe, what you believe intellectually isn't necessarily true. It's really what ends up being in your heart. I mean, I think it's what you know, not what you believe, right? So, I mean, I don't know. This is, of course, people get in all kinds of arguments. I used to get into arguments with people in churches because we found that the churches that we had tried to go to were all corrupt. I mean, they all had their own, they're all connected too in Los Angeles, and they're all corrupt, and all the pastors would get together with each other and have lunch and discuss difficult cases like me or whatever. And one time the Lord gave me a vision or a word on somebody that he was like an undercover agent. And I spoke that word. I said, I'm receiving this word. I don't know what to do. And they wanted me to shut up. And I said, this guy's an undercover agent. I think he's an FBI agent that's just keeping track of people here. The next day, they threatened to kill me. They shipped this guy out the next day. He was gone. He was like one of the workers at the church, right? He was just a fixture at the church. He was gone, and then I was targeted. But I wonder if people know that the churches are corrupt, tied in with the government. You know, people are keeping, maybe not dossiers, but they're keeping an eye on. People are being watched there. And when when you confess your sins, they then start, you know what they want to do with that? They want to, if you've done some really bad things and you confess them, then they blackmail you with those. Like you better give so much to the church. You better not leave, because we know things. And it's just a nasty, nasty, nasty situation in this country and around the world. And that has not been healed, Christine. That has not been, that problem of corruption in churches. People go, well, I'm a Christian and I'm praying, and so I don't care. You got to earn respect here. You know what I mean? It's let's see the fruits of your being. I mean, have you been thrown out of your fellowship? No. Have you ever gone up against the leadership in your church and complained about corruption? No. Have you ever complained about pedophilia of even your own children in the church? No. Well, you're not much of a Christian. You're not any kind of bro. You're nothing.
Any kind of bro. I like
no bro there. No bro. No bro, man. Having some fun today.
I know the churches. It's not worth going. I go to a Catholic church when there's nobody around, and I go. It was one I went to when I was a kid, and I like the statues, so I go and light some candles when there's nobody there because it's so pretty.
My ex-wife was, grown up in Italy and Sicily, and Italy in northern Italy. And it was always the candles and the holy well, that was all a big part of it, and it made her feel connected to the living God. And I had no objection to it. I mean, it's funny, as you get older, you just don't really object to whatever. It seems to me that all people are the same in one respect. They want to find that whatever that is within them that makes them whole. And it's like we all have a hole in our soul. We need to fill it with something. It's either going to be evil or good, but we're all looking for it, right? And I don't know. Things seem so dire to me in our society, like we're on a hair trigger, from war and just failure in a lot of ways. And, I'm trying not to get bummed out about that, but I'm just really. On the one hand, I feel like we made great progress talking about, like you say, the gang stalking, pedophile. We have a show about Human 20 on 20, which is about sex trafficking, freeing the slaves, ending human slavery, modern day slavery, and human trafficking by 2020. We'd hope. We started this prayer group a few years ago. But since we started it, it's all become awareness. It's out in the public awareness now. And we're starting to understand the vastness of pedophilia and how it's institutionalized. And, like the late, great Stanley Kubrick said, he goes, the world is run by pedophiles. He had said that. And,
Why is it run by, why are they, like the pop singer R. Kelly, he's been arrested. Why do grown people find children attractive? I don't my adoptive father, he came at me. He was so weak. I always wanted to work that out though, why a grown man could find a little girl. Women are beautiful, with their curvy bodies. Why I just don't understand it.
Agree with you. I don't understand it either. And I was a victim of it. I had no, it seemed, though, that it's not just a fetish, though. It's a taboo where there's tremendous power in harming innocence and in defiling innocence. There's power in it. And these people have become power mad. To get to that place where you would hurt children and, they rape them and kill them, too, as they can't live without, seems to me, they have to kill them and even eat their guts. They're basically... There's no end to their depravity, and how they get there is they break one taboo, they break another, eventually their appetite goes to some extreme.
But do you think like a lot of people think that that's aliens or demons, not humans? What do you think about that? Do you think it's humans?
Well, they are humans, but they're in concert with demons, obviously, because they're anti-human. Once you start defiling youth and innocent ones, you're now anti-human, aren't you? You're anti-human, completely anti-human. So you've opened your up. It's kind of like, six of one, half dozen of the other. Yes, you've opened yourself up to demons, but you as a human have now a taste for harming. It's like when we're kids. They're kids that want to torture insects and torture frogs and things. I've seen them. We all were kids. I think it's that same instinct that's just gone to an insane level, and I believe they try to outdo each other in depravity in their secret societies where they if you really want to go up the ladder, you're going to have to kill your whole family in a ritual in a church at midnight, and then you're going to have to partake in this orgy afterwards after you finish eating the bodies or something. The worst horror movie you could think of, and then that becomes their rites of passage. Just like we have struggled to be more holy, more good. You're putting away the sins, putting away those things that are not helping us. Trying to become one with God. We might fast and pray and things. They go the other way. They feast and gorge on blood and trauma for the same result, to be at one with their master, Satan. Which, by the way, they'll all deny exists. And they say, oh, no such thing as Satanism, because they really are, in a sense, worshiping themselves. But they don't answer that question because it remains a mystery. They say, well, if you say Satan, that shows you're ignorant. No, I say Satan, and you can deny there is a, quote, Satan, and that's fine. But we all know what we mean by the behavior that we see.
And is Satan an angel? I'm kind of confused about that. Was that an angel?
Well, Lucifer, Satan, the adversary. Satan is a title. It means the adversary, and it's like the prosecuting attorney who's going to find something wrong with every human. Satanism, the will to eradicate the entire world of humans. That's the goal of Satanism, to end all humanity.
Why?
Why? Because that's because if you go along with the legend of it, of Lucifer wants to put himself above the Most High God and can't do it as long as there's humans there.
Oh, I see. Why not?
Why not? Why not? Go ahead. Can you clarify?
I don't understand why he can't put himself above God. I don't understand the storyline. So he can't put himself above God because we're in the way. Why are we in the way?
We're in the way because God created us, in his image, and he didn't create the angels in his image, and the angels are angels, and humans are, as the Bible says, humans are to be the tabernacle of God, the actual tabernacle, the vessels that hold God within. Oh. The God people. Can you imagine that? And the angels are inferior ultimately.
Oh, I see.
So you see, it's very interesting. Yeah, it's an interesting study. If you want to get into it, but I know that, the demons are there. I know when they try to talk to me and get me to go the wrong way, and they're always testing me, and it becomes a test of faith. But, I just have to keep putting God first. And I just have to keep asking the Lord to keep me out of those places, out of any of that, because, how with me, one of my weaknesses at this point is anger, tremendous anger and probably it's because of, I need more work in forgiving people in childhood. But anger, real anger, like say the TV, political talk on TV, I get so angry, I want to run my fist through the thing. Well, that anger can be, if it gets bad enough, you know what I mean? If it gets hysterical, that becomes an opening, a door opening for demonic activity to come into you and start foisting that anger on everybody. And I don't want that. So what I've done is I've tried to avoid the television and try to kind of avoid, I've kind of had to put politics a little bit on the back burner because I just can't stand that. You talk about inhuman people. These people are just not even subhuman. I don't know what they are, but they're not people anymore. Oh. And I don't care what side of the aisle. They all lie. They all just say anything. They all they're stupid, and the people that follow them are stupid. Oh. And then I'm like, Lord, you've cursed me by putting me in the land of the stupid. Everything is so stupid. It's not worth, please just nuke us all, okay? Because this is an inferior. This is a failure, Lord.
That's right.
So I get to that point, and I know that's not right, though. Okay, I know that kind of cynicism. I know there's a lot of pseudo intellectuals out there. I call them pseudo for a reason, and they love to have this point of view. They think if they're atheist and they're in the truth thing, and they're just so advanced. And I know when people start thinking they're advanced and become arrogant like that, they're not advanced. They're stupid too.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
And they're these, like, they put themselves above everybody. Because, oh, you're still back there with Jesus, huh? You sound like
no, yeah.
Oh, I get that. I got the other day. I got some European guy, and he was on my channel briefly, and he goes, "You sound like a dumb American," probably because I was. And I was like, well, you sound like Eurotrash, So there, come on, we're humans. But that was a period of my, not that long ago. I was really, I was, sort of fascinated with Donald Trump and the fact he was fighting them, and he was, and he was, rounding up the pedophiles, and I was just happy that they were all so angry at him, and they want to do him in and assassinate him and impeach him and all this stuff. I thought, well, that makes him kind of a hero. And everybody jumped on me. Oh, he's the same Illuminati. You've been duped, Zaf. I'm like, okay, I'm just not going to deal with it anymore. You deal with it out there. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think we liked him here in England because, well, I did, because he's so real. Because our politicians and the other ones in America, they sort of sound like robots and nothing's real, but he just comes out and it's refreshing. And
we want Tommy Robinson freed, and we also like, right? And we like Nigel Farage. You got him.
Oh, yes, he does. You're right. He does.
And I love his eloquence. I love the English language. I really love it. I was like a literature freak. I was really into the whole linguistic thing of English. And he speaks so well and so wittily, if I may, that you just got to be impressed. He had one other guy. I don't know why it's Brits that seem to be so eloquent with the English language, but they are. It makes sense. It's where it originates. But There was a guy I really liked who was another intellect, a power above everybody else, named Christopher Hitchens. I don't know if you remember him.
Oh, yes. I've got some friends of his on my Facebook, Julie Birchall and those guys.
Yeah, very brilliant guy. I mean, he was like not really into God or anything, and he was kind of anti-God, but I appreciated his mind and his linguistic, eloquent, use of the English language always fascinated me. We were drawn into it. And I always knew that if he went along long enough, if he went further, he probably, like everybody else, would get to that, would get to the point where we'd get out of the God thing being a intellectual argument. It's more of it's a different philosophical situation. Like if you deny God exists, see, he fell into this trap that is fine, and we all do from time to time. But when you deny God exists, you affirm he exists. That's the ontological argument. You can't deny he exists, or you're really saying, if you say I'm an atheist, you're saying I believe in God, because you'd have to believe in him to deny him is the reasoning.
Yeah, I see.
So they fall. Well, it's amazing how many people fall into that trap.
Oh, yeah, of course. Do you think this thing about aliens and greys and reptilians, do you think that's just demons?
Well, I had one experience, and this is all I can say about it. I had one experience where it was 1992, and we had sightings of these ships and stuff. And I'm willing to say it's all demonic, but it's really strange in that I had the experience of one of these little beings about the size of the doorknob. I remember the doorknob was around the top of the head. And the eyes staring at me and I got so scared to death and I was frozen, and I felt like they were taking me out the window, and not just out the window, but down the hall. There was no hall, there was a house, but taking me through the wall and somewhere else. And I fought them. I was so scared I couldn't get a glass of water. I couldn't get out. I was shaking, and a memory survived of satanic abuse back in. Must have been when I was 5 or 6 of this adults and children, and a ritual, meaning there were other adults watching as the children were being defiled and something up like that. But it was just in the context of it, like an alien attempted abduction. And I went to people, I went to therapists, I talked about it, and I said I don't really believe that memory is real. Of course, eventually, I blocked out all those memories, but eventually they showed themselves to be quite real. Abuse is real, unfortunately, and in my case, with generational abuse. But I was shown that by that alien experience, and again, I did a painting and I captured the eyes in the painting, and it scared me so much I messed it up on purpose so that I wouldn't have to look at those eyes. And I'm willing to say that's a demon that showed up. They were triggering that memory to traumatize me, to hurt me, like a gang-stalking thing. We had ships going overhead here and there that we were fighting them. We didn't want them to come any closer, right? We felt we were under siege. And then it ended. And
that's amazing. I think we're coming to the end of the show. I can hear the credits rolling. It's been awesome having you on. I'd like to have you back again at some point. You're a brilliant guest.
It's fun, Christine. Thank you for having me on and letting me go. I mean, as long as you don't mind, I can also be more quiet.
A broadcast hours of news and information each and every day. Revolution Radio that never sleeps. Revolution Radio is worldwide and borderless information.
You're probably going to get a cup of tea.
Revolution Radio is also commercial free. Revolution Radio is supported 100% by you, the listeners.
5 espressos this morning. I want tea.
To donate and support this station and its expenses. You can support us in many available
thank you everybody
like
for listening. That was
archive
Jeff Daniels and my
our
brilliant
pack
guest, and the show is
selections,
dedicated
or
to
even
Jeff
my
White.
woodworking store.
And
we
Jerry,
also
thank you
even
so
have
much for producing.
Revolution
I'll
Radio
hand the studio
swag
over to you.
at
God bless
the
everyone.
Revolution
Thank
Radio
you.
Zazzle store, which you can get t-shirts, coffee cups, even a baby onesie, or you can just plain donate to the cause. We cannot continue without your support, and your support is what helps pay the bills. So please, if you wish us to continue, please stop by our station support page and drop a dime on us. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
Enter into a world unseen on Raven Star's Witching Hour. You will encounter eclectic topics from the realm of spirit brought into our matrix of truth. With your host, the Solaris Blue Raven. Solaris will bring you an array of unique guests covering topics from ghostly spirits to amazing anomalies, covert technology, UFOs, and shadowy global events.
And that's right here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, Saturdays, midnight till 2 a.m. Eastern Time. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.